Arizona is famous for its sprawling deserts and bustling cities, but hidden in the shadows are towns most people never see. Some struggle to survive with limited jobs, rising costs, and isolation, while others quietly thrive with strong communities and natural beauty. From dusty mining remnants to scenic desert oases, these 10 small Arizona towns reveal a side of the state that's rarely discussed. Join us as we explore life at the edge of America, where survival and resilience define everyday reality. If you're enjoying this journey, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Traveling Guide Hub for more amazing travel stories. 1. Mammoth. The sun hung low over the jagged desert hills, casting long, cracked shadows across the streets of Mammoth, where the faint scent of dust and old metal lingered in the air. Founded in the late 1800s as a copper mining hub, Mammoth grew quickly as miners and their families arrived seeking opportunity beneath the rugged Arizona terrain. For decades, the town thrived, with the mine fueling homes, schools, and small businesses until copper prices fell and mining work became unpredictable. Over time, families left in search of stability, leaving streets eerily quiet, punctuated only by the occasional rattling of old shutters in the wind. Visitors and locals alike often describe a strange heaviness that hangs over certain parts of the town. At night, the abandoned industrial sites echo faint footsteps, footsteps that stop when approached. Some say a metallic tang fills the air near the old smelter, carrying a sharp, almost bitter bite. During midday, the silence can feel oppressive, as if the desert itself is holding its breath. Residents who remain report sudden chills in the warmer months, a cold breeze that sweeps through empty streets with no apparent source, and whispers that seem to come from the wind itself. Even the small cemetery out town contributes to the unsettling atmosphere. Tombstones are sun-bleached and cracked, leaning slightly as if bowing to unseen visitors. People passing through have spoken of seeing figures move at the corner of their vision, shadows that vanish when directly looked at. It's not ghost stories or legend that makes Mammoth notable. It's the raw, quiet evidence of a town clinging to memory, where history and the desert converge in a palpable, lingering tension. Mammoth doesn't shout its past. It waits, silent and watchful. And when you leave, you can't help but wonder how many of the echoes you hear are truly from the wind. 2. Holbrook. The late afternoon sun cast long, molten shadows over Holbrook, painting the cracked asphalt and weathered storefronts in orange and gold. Founded in 1881 as a railroad stop along the Atlantic and Pacific Line, Holbrook quickly became a bustling waypoint for travelers on the way to the painted desert and petrified forest. Its streets once rang with the clatter of wheels and chatter of shopkeepers, but over time, economic decline and rising crime transformed the town into a place both alive and quietly unsettling. Locals often describe an odd tension in the air, a sense that someone or something is always just beyond sight. In the quiet hours, distant, irregular clanks echo through empty alleys, reminiscent of tools striking metal, though no workers are present. The dry desert wind carries an acrid tang that seems sharper near old gas stations and abandoned motels. Some visitors have reported feeling a sudden, inexplicable chill, a tightening in the chest, as if the town itself is pressing down. Shadows shift strangely along the stucco walls, and on some nights, the glow of a lone streetlight casts silhouettes that vanish when approached. Holbrook's history seeps from every brick and sidewalk. Former Route 66 signs creak under the wind, and the remnants of old diners and trading posts hint at past prosperity, contrasting starkly with boarded windows and empty lots. Those who grew up here talk of hearing footsteps behind them when the streets are empty, or catching fleeting shapes in the corner of their vision. It's not overtly frightening, but the combination of history, silence, and subtle unease leaves a lasting impression. Walking through Holbrook, the desert sun feels warmer, yet the shadows linger longer than they should. The town doesn't scream danger, it whispers it. And as you turn to leave, you can't shake the question, what secrets are the empty streets keeping just out of sight?
3. Page.
The afternoon light glinted off the red rock cliffs surrounding Page, reflecting a warmth that seemed almost too bright for the quiet streets below. Established in the 1950s to support workers building the Glen Canyon Dam, Page grew as a hub for tourism and energy production, nestled along the Colorado River. While the town offered steady work and stunning landscapes, it never lost the sense of impermanence, as seasonal changes and economic shifts constantly reshaped daily life. Visitors often remark on the unusual stillness of its streets outside tourist season, a calm that feels almost deliberate, like the town itself is pausing to breathe. Locals speak of subtle oddities that give Page an air of mystery. At dawn, the faint hum of machinery seems to come from abandoned sites near the dam, echoing across the canyon walls with no identifiable source. Some say a cool breeze sweeps through the streets even when the river is still, carrying the faint smell of wet stone and concrete. On quiet evenings, shadows along the riverbank seem to move independently of the last rays of sunlight, and footsteps are sometimes heard on empty streets, soft but deliberate, fading without trace. Visitors describe a heavy sensation in the chest when walking near the old housing areas, as though the town's past, full of labor, effort, and struggle, is still present in the air. Page is a town of contrasts, vibrant tourist sites and tranquil, almost forgotten neighborhoods. The Glen Canyon Dam towers nearby, a symbol of progress and permanence, while small streets tell stories of uncertainty and impermanence. Those who pause long enough often feel the weight of both histories pressing together. Page doesn't shout its secrets, it lets them linger quietly in the red rocks and river mists. And as you leave, a single thought remains: how much of what you sense here belongs to the town, and how much is drawn from your own imagination. 4. Coolidge. The morning sun poured over Coolidge, casting golden light on the fields that stretch beyond the small downtown. Founded in 1925 alongside the expansion of Arizona's agricultural industry, Coolidge became known for its cotton farms and local produce markets. The town grew steadily, providing work for generations, but shifts in the economy and mechanization gradually reduced the need for labor, leaving some streets quieter than they once were. There's a sense here that the town is holding on to its past, even as the present moves forward at its own pace. Locals often report unusual experiences in the quieter corners of Coolidge. Walking past old warehouses and closed farm stores, people describe a stillness so deep it feels almost tangible, broken only by distant, unidentifiable creaks or the sudden rattle of a shutter swinging in the breeze. Some describe the air as heavier near abandoned cotton gins, carrying a faint earthy scent mixed with dry dust and a temperature shift that seems sharper than the desert heat around it. In the evenings, shadows stretch in unnatural ways across empty streets, and residents have noted a sensation of being watched, though no one is visible. Despite its calm exterior, Coolidge retains echoes of its agricultural past. Rusting equipment, aging barns, and long-forgotten irrigation ditches whisper stories of hard labor and community life. Visitors often feel the weight of history here, quiet but persistent, like the land itself remembers every season and harvest. Coolidge doesn't reveal its past with fanfare, it offers subtle reminders woven into the rhythm of its streets and fields. And as you walk away, the lingering question remains: how much of what you sense here belongs to the town, and how much is drawn from your own imagination? 5. Winkleman. The afternoon sun reflected off the calm waters of the Gila River, casting shimmering patterns across the small streets of Winkleman. Founded in 1904 as a copper mining town, Winkleman thrived when the mines were active, with families filling modest homes and the local school ringing with children's laughter. Over time, however, declining mining activity and limited job opportunities left much of the town quiet, the old industrial sites standing as silent witnesses to a bustling past. Visitors to Winkleman often remark on a strange stillness that settles over the town, especially near the remnants of the old mining operations. The air carries a metallic tang, sharp and almost biting, mixing with the desert's dry heat. Locals report hearing faint, unexplained footsteps echoing through the empty streets, as if someone is walking just behind them, yet no one appears. Shadows along the Gila River bend unnaturally in the evening light, and the rusting structures sometimes seem to creak with movement, though the wind is calm. The town's history seeps into every corner. Abandoned homes, old mining equipment, and weathered storefronts tell the story of lives built around industry and community, now suspended in time. Longtime residents speak of sudden chills in the air near certain sites, and a heaviness that presses subtly against the chest, as though the past itself lingers, watching quietly. Even the quiet streets of Winkleman hold an unspoken narrative of struggle, resilience, and memory. Walking through Winkleman, it becomes clear that the town doesn't announce its history, it whispers it, lingering in the heat, the shadows, and the wind. And as you leave, you can't help but ask, how many stories of its people still move unseen through these streets? 6. Hayden. A faint haze hung over Hayden as the sun rose, giving the small town a muted glow that softened the outlines of its industrial buildings. Founded in 1906 as a copper mining town along the Gila River, Hayden's history is tightly bound to the rhythms of the smelter and the mines that powered its economy. For decades, the town thrived on mining, providing stable work for generations, but fluctuations in copper production and market shifts have left the town quieter than it once was, its streets carrying a persistent, almost watchful stillness. Residents and visitors often speak of an unsettling weight in the air, especially near the old smelter. The metallic tang of copper lingers, sharp and lingering, even as the wind stirs the streets. Footsteps are sometimes heard echoing along deserted sidewalks, soft and deliberate, fading into the distance without explanation. Some describe a sudden chill that creeps along the riverbank, or shadows that seem to stretch longer than the sun should allow. Even the hum of distant machinery, though absent at times, can feel omnipresent, like a reminder of the town's industrious past. Life in Hayden is a balance of pride and endurance. Rusting equipment, abandoned mining sites, and modest homes speak to decades of labor, while tight-knit families maintain the town's spirit despite economic uncertainty. Longtime residents share stories of quiet evenings where the air itself feels heavy, charged with memory, as though the work and struggles of the past are still present in some invisible form. Hayden doesn't demand attention, it quietly holds its history, etched into every street and building. And as you walk away, you are left with a lingering thought. How much of Hayden's past still moves unseen among the living? 7. Tolleson. The early morning air in Tolleson carried a faint scent of baking bread and citrus from nearby farms, blending with the warm desert breeze. Established in 1912, Tolleson grew as a small agricultural hub, supplying produce to the Phoenix area, and over time became a modest industrial center. While the town's history is rooted in work and community, the streets today carry a quiet, sometimes uneasy stillness, especially in areas once bustling with market activity and loading docks. Locals often notice subtle, unexplained sensations when walking through the older sections of Tolleson. Shadows seem to shift unexpectedly along the warehouse walls, and the occasional distant clang of metal resonates through empty streets, as if a ghostly cart is still making its rounds. The air can suddenly feel heavier, pressing softly against the chest, and some report brief chills despite the midday sun. At night, the hum of traffic fades, leaving an odd silence, punctuated by the whisper of wind through vacant lots and the faint rustling of leaves from sparse desert trees. The town's legacy is visible in weathered buildings, old signage, and the occasional abandoned farm equipment that lines the outskirts. Residents speak of feeling the presence of the past, not threatening, but persistent, particularly near older neighborhoods and former marketplaces. The quiet streets seem to hold fragments of lives once lived, a sense of continuity amid change and occasional isolation. Tolleson doesn't announce its history. It lingers in the sights, sounds, and subtle weight of the air. And as you leave, the lingering question remains: how much of the life that once animated these streets is still quietly present, unseen, but undeniably felt?
8. Quartzsite. The desert sun bore down relentlessly on Quartzsite, turning its sparse streets into shimmering ribbons of heat, the air dry and heavy with the scent of dust and creosote. Founded in the late 1800s as a small stagecoach stop and later gaining fame during the gold and mineral rushes, Quartzsite remained a quiet, almost forgotten town for much of the year. Its population swells dramatically during the winter months when RV travelers flock to its desert grounds, creating a fleeting surge of life amid long stretches of isolation. Even outside the seasonal influx, locals and visitors note a peculiar stillness that sets Quartzsite apart. Walking through the empty streets during off-season, the silence feels almost absolute, broken only by the faint clatter of a distant gate swinging or the whisper of sand skittering across rusted metal roofs. Some speak of a sudden chill that cuts through the dry heat, a cold that feels entirely out of place and impossible to ignore. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the cracked pavement, and the occasional metallic tang in the air hints at the town's long history of mining and industrial activity. Quartzsite carries its past in the skeletons of old buildings, abandoned shops, and rows of empty RV lots. Residents recall hearing footsteps where no one walks and glimpsing fleeting shapes in the corner of their vision, fleeting moments that vanish when directly observed. The town feels suspended between seasons and realities, as if the desert itself holds memories of every transient visitor and every settled miner who once called it home. Quartzsite doesn't shout its stories. They linger quietly in the heat, the wind, and the empty streets. And as you leave, one question remains: how many of the echoes you hear belong to the town, and how many are drawn from your own imagination?
9. Cibecue. A thick, dry wind whispered through the pines surrounding Cibecue, carrying the faint, earthy scent of the forest floor mixed with the sharp tang of the nearby Salt River. Nestled in Navajo County, Cibecue was founded in the early 20th century as part of the Apache community lands and slowly developed into a small town supporting local families and mining efforts. Even today, with a population of roughly 1,500, the town feels deeply isolated, tucked away from major highways and urban centers, its quiet streets often stretching for blocks without a single vehicle in sight. Locals often describe an almost tangible heaviness in the air, particularly near the old community centers and abandoned homesteads. Footsteps echo faintly along empty lanes, sometimes stopping as though someone is watching, though no one appears. The temperature can shift unexpectedly, with a sudden chill running across the back of the neck, even under the midday sun. Visitors have reported fleeting shadows glimpsed in the periphery of their vision, shapes that vanish the moment they turn to face them directly.
The stillness is not peaceful. It is charged with an unspoken awareness, as if the land itself is attentive to every sound and movement. Sibiqu's history is etched into its streets and surrounding wilderness. Weathered buildings, aging fences, and the occasional abandoned mining site hint at lives once full of toil and community, now leaving subtle imprints on the present. People passing through often speak of a quiet unease, not fear, but a persistent sense that the town carries stories it cannot fully release. Sibique doesn't demand your attention. It asks you to notice the silence, the shadows, the small details. And as you leave, the question lingers. How much of what you feel here belongs to the town, and how much to the unseen past it holds close?
10. Peach Springs. The dry Arizona wind swept across Peach Springs, carrying the faint scent of creosote and the distant hum of the Hualapai Reservation lands. Founded in the late 1800s, Peach Springs grew as a key stop along the historic Route 66 and later became the gateway to Grand Canyon West and the Skywalk. Despite this proximity to tourism, much of the town remains isolated and quiet, with streets that often lie empty, giving a sense that the desert itself presses close to the few residents who call it home. Visitors and locals alike report subtle, unsettling experiences as they move through the town. The air can feel heavier in certain areas, especially near old trading posts and abandoned motels, carrying a sharp, earthy scent that seems to cling to the skin. Footsteps echo in empty streets, soft yet deliberate, fading as soon as one turns to see the source. Some describe an almost imperceptible chill that cuts through the midday heat, a sensation that raises hairs along the arms and causes the chest to tighten for a fleeting moment. Shadows along the sparse streets sometimes shift in ways that defy the sun, lengthening and bending as if guided by unseen hands. Peach Springs' history is palpable in every corner. Weathered wooden structures, quiet homes, and remnants of old roads whisper of lives built under harsh conditions and enduring cultural significance. Residents speak of fleeting moments at the edge of vision, shapes or movements that vanish when acknowledged directly, adding to the sense that the town retains the weight of its past, silently observing those who pass through. Peach Springs doesn't need to declare its history. It seeps into the senses, leaving a lingering presence. And as you step away, the thought lingers. How much of this town's memory walks beside you without ever being seen?